Okay, let's talk landfill.
Okay.
The on-site waste disposal facility is what they call it.
Right.
Do you remember when you first heard about this?
Oh, I probably first heard about it in 12, maybe 12 or 13. I'd been on plant site since 1979. I was a security guard out there.
So you were part of the SWAT team?
I was on the very first SWAT team, which started in 1983, the first class.
So you were guarding America's nuclear
Yes.
material.
Yes, we was.
A little bit more than a guard.
A little bit more.
Did you serve in our armed forces?
I didn't. I had been a deputy sheriff here in Pike County for almost 5 years before I went out there.
So how long were you there?
I was on site for almost 39 years.
Wow.
I was a guard for a little over 31.
You did all of this. You have great insight there. You're the mayor. And it looks like this rumor that started and then coming to reality of a landfill on site, radioactive landfill.
Yeah.
Let's be clear, radioactive and chemical
Yes.
landfill was being really now going down a serious road. What'd you think?
Well, at first there was a lot of talk about, the landfill was a possible option. Maybe we'll ship it off site, out west where it's drier, where the climate's more is better for something like that. And then I don't know a date or anything like that, but then all of a sudden it was like, yeah, here it is. We're putting in a landfill.
So it looked clear they were going to go.
We're going. This is it, and it wasn't where it was originally where I was told it was going to go. It was a lot closer to town than it probably wouldn't really have mattered, even if it was another mile or so away. But
this is where it eventually went.
Where it is now is where, and that's when we started getting concerned, really. And I'll be the first to tell you that the Village of Piketon was probably a little late to the dance, but they hadn't broke ground or anything yet, and they was still time to reverse the decision.
Did you get involved after the ROD?
Well, I don't know what date that was, but it was we didn't get involved, to be honest with you, until 2016.
Okay, so at that point, it looked like they were moving straight ahead. And so you jump in and say, wait a minute.
Yep, we did a resolution and we sent it to DOE, and all we asked for was give us some information, there's things we want to know. And that we had never gotten. And as a host community, we're the town that's closest to the site.
So give me an idea of what you wanted to know.
Well, we wanted to know what was going to go in there. We wanted to know, what we knew that they had done these studies and had this report. What was their safety measures? What was they doing to? It's wet here. Our climate, we get a lot of rain here. How do you intend to handle that runoff and all that? And we just wanted answers, and they never responded to us, except a guy named Vince Adams, who was the site DOE director, came to a council meeting. And I think he thought, he worked in Pike County, but he's not from here. And I think he bought into the thought that these people don't really know what they're talking about. I'll go in there. And he stood up in front of council, and this is his words to council. This site where this is going to go is pristine. He said, it is almost like God created this site knowing that there was going to be a radioactive nuclear dump here. And we called it the dump,
He invoked God?
He said it was just like God created this site. It could not be more perfect for this thing to be. And I'll never forget Dennis Foreman, who is still on council, said, and it was classic. He said, "What did Piketon do to piss God off?" You know, yeah, that's the truth. You know, and so from there on, we didn't have no information, no contact. They really just kind of blacked us out.
So you felt, or the council and you as mayor felt that they weren't giving you anything and they gave you a song and dance.
Yes. Yeah.
So at some point you and the council determined we're not getting information.
Right.
We need to get our own.
We did, and don't hold me exactly to these dates, but I think we passed a resolution in 16 to try to get this information, and then in 17 we hired a group out of Washington D.C. called the Ferguson Group, and their whole their whole assignment from us was to basically find out the truth, find out what's going on. You know, they was in Washington D.C. and they're kind of a consultant lobbying group.
They're also based on engineering.
They are.
That's an engineering group that can look at it and tell you what you're dealing with. And on June 21st, 2017, the Ferguson Group put together the what appears to be the final version of their report about the landfill for the village of Piketon. And the essence of what they put together is startling.
It is. It's and then particularly when you look at the source of their information, for most of their information was from the Department of Energy's own report to
The record of decision.
a record of decision of how things were going to be. Now,
So the record of decision, we're talking, and I have gone through that, with the two parts of that are almost 8,000 pages.
yeah,
I mean, it's a lot.
yes,
And in the record of decision, they acknowledge in the report things like fracturing. They acknowledge of the bedrock.
Yes.
They acknowledge the aquifer that runs underneath it. They acknowledge in their own study the aquifer, the fracturing, and the fact that they're in a wet climate. It's all there.
it's all there.
But yet, it was approved by the Department of Energy to go there despite all that.
Despite all that. And I've always believed that they never thought anybody from this area would read it. Okay?
And you did.
And understand it.
And you hired a firm to do it.
We hired a firm that would read it, that would understand what they saw. And then when we got their report, they highlighted just what you said, that the bedrock underneath the aquifer is fractured. It's that the bottom of the aquifer, the bottom of the landfill is way closer to the aquifer than it's by law says it can be.
So by law, where you don't need a variance, I believe is 20 feet.
Yeah.
That's Ohio EPA in general, is you got to have 20 feet of solid, non-fractured bedrock.
Non-fractured, yeah, yes.
Do they have that?
No. They have it in some places of the landfill, they do. What they did was they're way below that in some areas, quite a bit above
How far
that.
below that?
Yeah, I don't have the report right in front of me, but it seems like it was 4 or 5 feet. Very, very close from the bottom of the landfill to the aquifer. That we use, and a lot of towns around here use for their drinking water.
Well, when you say a lot of towns, this aquifer is considered one of the country's very important ones because it flows from just north of Asheville through this area, feeds Scioto and other rivers along the way.
Yes.
But it also goes all the way to Illinois. So
It
we're
goes
talking
almost Chicago.
yeah,
That's what
multiple states.
Yes.
And you're talking, when you did this, this wasn't you, this is a firm you hired.
Yes. We didn't know what they were going to come back with.
And what they said is they have fracturing in some cases, 5 feet. I'm 6'2".
Yeah.
How tall are you?
5'10".
So less than your height
Yes. From the
between the bottom of this landfill, which is radioactive material
Yes.
and chemical,
yes.
to an important aquifer that feeds multiple states in this country.
Absolutely. And the bedrock is fractured.
And you presented all of this. This is from their own borings. I mean, just to reacquaint you, they use this. This is what DOE did.
Yes.
In the conclusion of this, which I thought was, and by the way, the stomp model was interesting too. DOE should be, at minimum, be required to undertake the necessary studies to fully understand the impact of fractured bedrock at depths greater than 20 feet. And this report says they aren't. And then it gets into a very clear conclusion. The conclusion says that it should not be built there. That should not happen here.
It should not. There's at least a couple reasons that the bedrock is fractured, and it's just too wet here. If you anything east of the Mississippi River, it's just the weather is just too wet, and it's just you go out west, you can go out there in a much drier climate, with we'll get in one storm what they get in a year out there in rain. And it's just, but it's not safe. Now, everywhere we went, they wanted to use the technology. Our senators and congressmen and stuff, we believe in the technology. But, if it's man-made, it'll break. It will.
So let's talk about this for a second. Okay. I'm going to back up a second. Yeah. When you talk about hiring this firm, how big is Piketon as a village? How many people?
Piketon is about 2,500 people. Right now, so
to hire this firm, how much did the village of Piketon spend?
$75,000, which is we had to talk about it for a while because that's a large expenditure for us, and but we needed to know we wasn't getting what we wanted from DOE, so we were and I'm couldn't read their report and fully understand DOE's report and fully understand it. So we talked it over and we decided to look into who we could get to do this and who would be fair and be honest and give us the truth.
So you went to you went through some pain financially to do this.
Yes.
And the conclusion, if I may.
Yeah.
Based on the foregoing statements conveyed in DOE RODS, the RODS, for the port site, the village of Piketon cannot support the construction of a low-level nuclear and hazardous waste landfill at Area D of the port site. It is clear to us that there is much uncertainty with respect to the scope of investigation undertaken that led to the decision to construct the landfill. We believe that a decision of such consequence to our community, the placement of a low-level nuclear and hazardous waste landfill that will contain radioactive material for millions of years, warrants the best reasoned approach, the best site selection, and the most thorough scientific and engineering assessment. The data our consultant, the Ferguson Group, has revealed is consequential and deserving of attention of Ohio EPA and DOE. DOE has failed to make the case for issuing a ROD for disposal of waste from the port's operations. We respectfully request that DOE reopen the ROD and address through additional investigations all concerns raised in this response document.
and we heard crickets.
You got nothing.
Nothing. You know, I've been to meetings with these guys, and I said, if this had been, I'd just say, if this had been the mayor of or a council of Columbus, would you have responded differently than you have the village of Piketon? Because there was no response to the village of Piketon, you know.
But
Except telling us that God created this site, you know, for this.
did you vote against the landfill?
We never voted. We never had a vote. And when Vince Adams, I told you the guy, so that was probably 17. I'd have to look at minutes from the council meetings. But that was the first time since 1954 that anybody from DOE or anything that had been called before DOE, ERDA, they had a couple names over the years, had ever been to a village Piketon council meeting.
Did that come after this report?
I think it actually came, his visit came while we was waiting on getting the report.
And more importantly, you provided to DOE a clear understanding from a reputable group out of DC that this is going to be trouble.
Yes. And, you know, I don't know how you want to exactly take this interview, but I will say that, you know, I did give DOE some credit for their business plan. I think they had a very good business plan. You know, first thing they did, they went to all the county commissioners, the 4 counties around here, and whatever they did to get their support, I can only guess. You know, a lot of them, the counties seem to come in to some different projects and stuff like that, but I can't prove that, you know. But they got the county commissioners' support, and they had our Ohio delegation. They had the Speaker of the House that time was a guy named Cliff Rosenberger,
I know Cliff.
and he was our representative for this district here, you know. And they had his support, you know, the Speaker of the House, you know, possibly the second most powerful guy in the state behind the governor. But we never had the support of the governor, you know, and we never got any state of Ohio support.
So you were basically all alone in opposing it.
The village of Piketon was completely isolated. Now, we did do some things, and if I can look at my notes, I want
Sure,
to tell you something.
yeah.
What we did was, once we realized we had no county support, or any surrounding counties, no state support, and no federal support, because Rob Portman and Sherrod Brown was our state senators, and they said they believed in the science. That's what Portman would say. Brown would say that I believe the local community should have their say, but he never would say it in a way that had any effect. He would tell us that, you know. And our congressman, and we just had, so we was going it alone. So what we did try to do was to go around to other places. And we did get some support from, you know, I can read this off.
Sure.
The Southern Ohio Diversification Initiative, SODI, you know, Seal Township, which is the township that Piketon's in, Soda Township, a bordering township that most of the plant sets in. Most of the plant sets in Soda Township. Soda Valley Local School District, the Piketon School District, the Village of Waverly, the Pike County Health Department, the Pike County Career Technology Center or Trade School, the Pike County Auditor, Pike County Treasurer, the City of Portsmouth, the City of Chillicothe, the Village of Kingston, the City of Jackson City School District, and the City of Athens all passed resolutions in support of what we were saying about the aquifer and the unsafety.
So they passed resolutions saying,
support.
Don't build this landfill.
Yes, we support Piketon, and we believe what they believe, that this is a bad thing. But it, once again, you know, they had preempted, DOE had preempted everything by getting the commissioners, state and federal delegation on board. And even though you have these other places, you know, you're beating your head against the wall.
The standard that DOE used is a 1,000-year time frame on holding radioactive waste, which has millions of years to half-life, which seems counterintuitive in and of itself.
It absolutely is a recipe for disaster, and DOE knows it's a recipe for disaster. The village of Piketon knew it was a recipe for disaster. It's still a recipe for disaster, but whether it's 1,000 years, 500, or 100, but they already have problems. They already have problems. But you know, none of those people that make these decisions live here. You know, they work here, they make a good living here, but they don't live here. You know, this may not affect me, you know, but I have a grandchild here. You know, I have a grandchild that spent 3 years at Zahn's Corner School, you know. So, and so does many, many other people around here. You know, it's different. If this is your home, you know, and I know people will see this, and some people will think, well, just why would you live there? Pack up and go. You know, well, this is your life. This is where you were raised. This is where your grandparents lived, you know, and this is where you sent your kids to school. This is where you go to church. This is where you work. Well, you know, and it's not easy to pack up and completely change your life, you know, and
well, you're the mayor. You're fully invested.
Yes, I've been the mayor for a long time here.
21 years.
21 years, and this is the best little town. I know you're from a small town, but I say this is the best little town in the state of Ohio.
I might give you a run for the money, but I'm not going to argue the point. I will tell you I spend a lot of time here, and I agree.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful place.
It is.
The part, though, about this, let's really take a look. Your fight was actually for millions of people.
It was.
Because if DOE does all this, as it's being done now, it's being filled up with construction debris and all the barrels and all that.
Every day.
If there's a leak into that aquifer of radioactive material, even chemical leak, TCEs and other things, if there's a leak into the aquifer, that will affect millions and millions of people who rely on it.
It will affect millions of people. But let's say there's a leak into the aquifer. Let's just say there is. You know,
do you think there will be?
I think they will be. I don't know if it'll be in my lifetime. I don't know. But here's another thing that people don't think about is that we have our own water treatment facility. We're spending over $10 million. It's 52% done. I just got a report completed on a brand new water treatment plant. You know, we're building that right now, and we do a lot of tests. You know, we test it before we send it out to the public. We don't currently test. I don't know that anybody does for this. Contamination and radiation and TC, we don't do those tests. And I don't know what it would cost to do those. You know, a town, we just have so much revenue. You know, we do the best we can, and I think we do a damn good job at what we provide, you know.
So in other words, you rely on the aquifer.
We rely on the aquifer for our drinking water. You know, that was how the system was set up. Village of Piketon didn't even have a public water system or even a wastewater sewage.
So you have a well. You have a well into the aquifer.
We have several wells into the aquifer. Yeah.
And that's where you get your drinking water.
It is.
And there are communities all
around us with the same thing.
Multiple
Waverly,
states.
That's just one. But there's many, many places, towns that get their drinking water.
So what was at stake here, while it was about your drinking water and your community, is much bigger.
It's much bigger. We never asked. We never had a money ask or anything like that. That won't fix it. We wanted. It started out. We just wanted answers. Talk to us. Talk to us. Tell us. What you're doing. How can our report from the Ferguson Group, using information from your report, when you acknowledge in your report all these problems and all these flaws, your report acknowledges that, and our report confirms what your report says, and you act like your report don't even exist, and we got it. We're reading. It's your report, and why we have to fight. We have to do what we can do, for us anyway, for the people that call Piketon home. We have to, as our function, job, to provide them a safe home. We have a great police department, and safe drinking water. I think that's our two main purposes, and we were fighting for that. We just want answers. And if you haven't broke ground yet on the landfill, there's other options. Will you please sit down with us and explore those options?
How many times do you think you tried to get a hold of DOE to talk to them?
Oh, all the time. We've made several trips to
Dozens,
DC.
hundreds?
Yeah, dozens or hundreds. I went to Washington DC several times. And was in meetings. With Portman and Brown and DOE officials, and nothing. It was just like our politicians that represent us would tell us, we believe in the technology, and DOE would just say, this isn't true. These fractures don't exist. This doesn't. It's in your report. Why would you put it in your report?
They basically...
They just blew us off. They just act like, I know what they thought. Everybody around here knows what they thought.
What was
They thought
that?
this is Piketon. What are they going to do about it? What are they going to do? They don't have the funds. They don't have the muscle. And without the commissioners, without state representatives or federal representatives' help, we got them isolated. We don't care if Portsmouth or Chillicothe says they agree with them. They're not going to spend any money supporting Piketon, So they agree with them.
So they didn't care.
They just didn't care.
And
they don't care to this day. I believe that.
Well, evidence is the landfill is fully underway now.
Yeah, and that basically, once they had, of course, COVID came along and everything, and it kind of shut a lot of things down. But once they started putting stuff in the ground, we had probably spent $100,000 at that point between the report and travel and everything. And, we just, at some point, Piketon versus the world is not a winning hand for us.
Right. You lost.
We lost.
But that doesn't mean you weren't right.
No, we always knew we was right, and that's what makes it harder, is when you know you're right and you still lose. And sometimes, I think we're the good guys in this, sometimes good guys lose.